Hello, I'm Jake Stief. Today I'm going to review Black Hawk Down by Mark Bowden. Black Hawk Down by Mark Bowden documents the true story of a U.S. military operation. This is a fantastic piece of historical nonfiction, and I highly encourage you to read it. It sheds some light on the little-told story of the showdown at Mogadishu, Somalia. So, essentially, we've got the capital city of Somalia called Mogadishu, located on the northeast border of Africa. It's become vehemently corrupt with gangs and factions. And we're not talking about your typical North St. Louis gangs who graffiti and sometimes shoot each other up. No, I'm talking about terrorist gangs, who, instead of simply wreaking havoc, actually have credible control over everyone through force and guns. Come to think of it, it's not too different from a totalitarian society. But anyway, Somalia is a generally poor country with poor, impoverished people. Western countries and the UN have made several attempts to feed these impoverished people, but, see, the factions don't like that. No, they want the food for all themselves. So, of course, they indulge in twisted, gluttonous habitries and then sell whatever they have left at extremely high prices to make extremely high profits. You wonder how they get funded? Well, ironically, indirectly, partly through our efforts to feed the people. Oftentimes, these terrorists employ the use of their bombs and their guns to retrieve these articles of food, so to make sure some order could try to be brought, at least to the capital city of Somalia, a military presence was established by America and other countries, mostly to try to take hostage or take out high-ranking faction leaders. To me, that seems like a horrible way to go about doing it. Things like a faction, you cut one head off and two grow in its place. It's not like an actual country where you take out the leader and then the country falls. To actually kill it, I would say to hit right where its source is. And, well, never mind. This could turn into a long philosophical discussion. One attempt by the U.S. to take out top-ranking faction leader Mohammed Farah Hadid went horribly wrong. What was to be a routine hop out of the helicopter and bag a terrorist mission to take less than an hour ends up being an all-night inner-city skirmish. To drop off the elite soldiers, the Rangers, the Marines, etc., they typically use two methods, via Humvee or via helicopter. This time they went with helicopter, and this time a terrorist decided to shoot it with a bazooka. Helicopter goes boom. Bang, bag and grab mission now turns into a rescue mission. And since the mission was now greatly prolonged and all the city now knew the presence and, all the city was now coincidentally in the streets, they needed to maneuver through it in order to get to the wreck. And wouldn't you know it, most of the citizens and the impoverished ones, for some reason, agree with the factions who rule them and decide to fight the strange U.S. soldiers with their AK-47s that they conveniently have in their houses. Wow. And it just keeps getting worse. Just when you thought all hell's broken loose, all hell breaks loose again. And it's remarkable to think that these events actually happened. The author, Mark Bowden, does an incredible job at depicting these events. He is an amazing journalist and does a fantastic job at presenting history in a very novel way. I mean, if you just picked up this book and had no idea what it was about, you would just think it's another fiction novel, when in fact it's all true. He's got a great narration voice and flawlessly jumps back and forth betwixt the very complicated events. It should be noted that a lot of things happen within the span of hours, and it all happens over a large vicinity, and with a story of that scope, you need clear scene changes to keep the reader happy and unconfizzled as he does that. That's why I didn't like the movie too much. It does a poor job at changing scenes. A lot of the buildings look like the same, a lot of the soldiers look the same, and so even if you glance away for a brief moment, you could become very confused. Was this helicopter, or was this the group by the helicopter, the group by the Humvee, the helicopter group where they found, did they get broke up? Dang nabbit. Hit rewind button. I suppose it's a good reflection of the actual confusion of the battle, but then again the soldiers weren't necessarily omniscient either, so therefore I don't like the confusion. Book. Much better job at settling this omniscient confusion. As for other confusions, well, that's fair game. It's developing sympathy. There's one particular scene in here which I really enjoyed. These two soldiers were being shot at, Sergeant Fates and Sergeant Wilkinson. Friends were being shot and killed, they were being shot and killed, blown up, wounded, chaos is everywhere, and the terrorist seems sure to kill them. Bullets everywhere. But then, this certain fallen U.S. helicopter they were hiding behind began taking on excessive amounts of gunfire. The metal exterior was swiftly being punctured just like a can. And that's exactly what Wilkinson thinks of, cans. More specifically, a specific scene from the great movie The Jerk, and decides to randomly and completely seriously shout out a quote by Steve Martin from the movie. Cans! They hate cans! Stay away from the cans! At which point the soldiers begin to laugh hysterically despite the ensuing chaos. Of all the war books I've read, I don't think no other book, and no other scene for that matter, has captured the feeling of being in a war, being in a battle as this scene does. Of course, I've never fought in a war, but this is how I picture it. And I've had people who have fought in wars tell me that that is a good way to describe how a war actually is. Being frightened leading up to the battle, but once it starts, being very emotionally confused. The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane does a good job of this too, but this scene, this is real. This actually happened. Not to mention, it plays a great role in the flow of the story. It's during one of the most intense times during the battle. There's a lot of stress, a lot of tension, but then we get this, this comic relief, which you would think otherwise impossible in a serious war novel where real people are dying. Where real Americans, real soldiers, are being felled by terrorist bullets. But it's crazy. It seems like the crazier, more unrealistic events in books are actually the real ones. Like, had this been a fiction novel, I would have thought some of the plot points were completely bogus. For example, the can one I just told you. Things like that could never happen. Like, our top Somali spy losing at a game of Russian roulette. Just don't get people. Anyways, after finishing this book, I like to think that what the military did was obviously going to end in error, as I've seen many other people do. But that, my friends, is something in psychology which we call hindsight bias, meaning that you only thought otherwise after the event. Nobody knew it was going to happen. Nobody knew it was going to end that badly. We can't judge them. We can't judge the leaders who made these decisions. We weren't in their shoes. Don't go barking up their tree. Bark up the terrace if you got to make some noise. So, with all that said, I gotta implore you to read this novel. I imagine it makes for a great introduction to war literature if you're new to that sort of thing. It's an invigorating read. It's also action-packed, but it also puts some good time into developing historical context and diplomatic things which occurred during the time. It's, of course, not the focus, nor is there a lot of it, but just enough so that you can jump right into this book without having any historical background whatsoever, and just enough so you can understand the politics that went into making the decision, during the decision, and after the battle. And now I'm going to read the first few paragraphs or so that you can gather Mark Bowden's style of writing. Thanks for watching a Bibliophile Productions. If you liked the video, please be sure to hit that awesome thumbs up button down below. And if you want to see more great book reviews or other video content such as cooking tutorials and typewriter tutorials, hit the subscribe button. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please address those in the comments section below. Down there, anything goes. Or you can contact me via one of my many forms of social media, which you can find in the description. If you want to delve further into the world of Jakey, Stief, the long-haired freaky dude, or Mr. Crazy Jake 451, hover over that eye icon right here. And there you can fund this channel for making great content, and you can check out my merchandise, which includes production logos, as well as any artwork that I make. So if you see any artwork in the background, such as a painting or a drawing, and you want it on a t-shirt or a bumper sticker, guess what? You can buy it. How cool is that? Alright. Thanks for watching. See you later. At liftoff, Matt Eversman said a Hail Mary. He was curled into a seat below two helicopter crew chiefs, the knees of his long legs up to his shoulders. Before him, jammed on both sides of the black helicopter, was his chalk. 12 young men in flak vests over tan desert camouflage fatigues. He knew the faces so well, they were like brothers. The older guy on this crew, like Eversman, a staff surgeon with 5 years in at age 26, had lived and trained together for years. Some had come up together through basic training, jump school, and ranger school. They had traveled the world, to Korea, Thailand, Central America. They knew each other better than most brothers did. They'd been drunk together, gotten into fights, slept on forest floors, jumped out of airplanes, climbed mountains, shot down foaming rivers with their hearts in their throats, baked and frozen and starved together, passed countless bored hours, teased one another endlessly about girlfriends or lack of same, driven in the middle of the night from Fort Benning to retrieve each other for some diner or strip club on Victory Drive after getting drunk and falling asleep or pissing off some barkeep. Oh my god, that was a long sentence. Okay. For all those things, they had been training for a moment like this. It was the first time the lanky sergeant had put in charge and was nervous about it. Pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. It was mid-afternoon, October 3rd, 1993. Eversman Chalk 4 was part of a force of U.S. Army Rangers and Delta Force operators who were about to drop in uninvited on a gathering of Habub clan leaders in the heart of Mogadishu, Somalia. This ragged clan, led by warlord Mohammed Farah Hadid, had picked a fight with the United States of America, and it was without a doubt going down. Today's targets were 2 of Hadid's lieutenants. They would be arrested and imprisoned with a growing number of the belligerent clan's bosses on an island of the southern Somalia coast of Kasmayo. Chalk 4's piece of this snatch and grab was simple. Each of the 4 Ranger Chalks had a corner of the block around the target house. Eversmen were roped down to the northwest corner and set up a blocking position. With Rangers in all 4 corners, no one would enter the zone where Delta was working, and no one would leave.